Thanks for being back to public again.
This is a little loud. You may want to turn it down a bit. Thank you, Tony. It's delightful to be here, and I love this cozy setting. At the event that Tony talked about at the East India Club, he provided no chairs to anyone. So when I gave the speech there, I knew when the first person fainted, I had to stop. That's not the case today, so I may drone on a little bit. My job, I understand, is to fly at 30,000 feet with all of you, or meters, and later Nikolai and others will parachute out and bring you down to ground level. But I want to be a little bit thematic. I had a choice. I want to start by saying I had a choice between two ties this morning. And one showed the collapse of civilization, and this one depicts a future so bright that we have to wear shades. And I chose the optimistic tie, and I'll talk more about that in a moment. Tony asked me to set the stage with a sense of urgency, and I trust that all of you share that sense, and I don't need to talk much about the urgency of our situation, except to steal a line from Lawrence, who I thought put it so beautifully yesterday, that we are both privileged and challenged to be alive right now, because the next 5 years will determine the course for the next 1,000. So it's an incredible moment to be alive and to be talking about these issues, and there's a lot of work to be done. And we have some in the world who try to distract us from that job by debating the science and making us afraid of economic cost and sacrifice and lost jobs, none of which is true. But there are others who don't get this for other reasons, and we need to show some empathy for them. They can't cope with the reality of what they're hearing. I'll talk more about that as well. They just can't understand the enormity of it. They feel powerless as an individual to do anything about it, and on and on and on. And those people need our help, I think. And I think we're all about that. The call to arms that I would offer is a bottom-up call to arms. We are here in Copenhagen to have the highest levels of government negotiate an international treaty. But I would say to you that we cannot rely on government. And the reason is, whenever countries or legislators get together to have a majority vote on something, they water that something down to the lowest common denominator. And in this case, the lowest common denominator is not enough. So the legislation we're likely to see from our Congress, the international deal we're likely to see here or after here, I don't think will be sufficient. And really, at the end of the day, the problem we're in is the aggregated results of billions of decisions that every one of us as human beings makes every day. And the solution is going to be the aggregated result of the decisions we all make every day. So I would suggest a couple of things in terms of our responsibility from the bottom up or from the middle up, depending on where you are. The first is, Tony and I have worked with Ogilvy and Mather, most of you know, very large and prestigious advertising firm, who's beginning to turn its creative talents toward communicating about this problem and its solutions. They're the sponsor of Copenhagen. You may have seen some signs at the airport and other places changing Cope to Hope. And they're really quite an interesting group. And we're talking with them now about what happens after this meeting in COP15, and whether we shouldn't be advocating a new social contract between companies and customers, citizen customers, I would say, not just customers, but citizen customers. And whether that contract might have some bold things, like an apartheid-style boycott by industry of the countries that have not set an aggressive carbon cap, much more green labeling, much more transparency, much more commitment to sustainability, publicly stated, verified by third parties, and on and on and on. Agreements by companies in the United States that they will not do business overseas without complying with the same environmental laws that we have in the United States with the same environmental standards. That kind of thing, and in turn, us citizen customers pledging our loyalty, especially to those companies. Time magazine did a survey in the United States recently and thought it detected what it called a new responsibility revolution beginning to grow, with more and more customers choosing the products from the companies that choose to be more sustainable. I think that we need better community building. When I started the project, I haven't described it, I will now. For the past 3 years, I've been in charge of a project to develop a climate and energy policy agenda for the next President of the United States, who of course turned out to be Barack Obama. It's a very comprehensive policy or document that spans 200 ideas across 14 different topics, ranging from ocean ecology to renewable energy technologies. And the administration has been fairly good about adopting many of these ideas. At the beginning of this project, I was introduced to an expert in computer technology who sat down and showed me, and some of you may be familiar with this, that he could map when a message came out in the public and went viral on the internet. He could find out the origin of that message, he could see where it went all around the network. And he showed me that the right wing in our country, denying climate,
had a much more sophisticated viral capability than the green organizations had. It was really pitiful, actually, to see the comparison. And shocking. And it seems to me that we have the tools we need for the most part to solve this problem. We lack political will, but there are some tools we have yet to develop, and that's what you're going to hear about today from Nikolai and Tony in terms of this computer platform. So that's one of the things we need to do, both electronically and groups like this, do better community building, organize ourselves better, and be prepared better for political action. The last thing I'll talk about goes back to my tie. One of the reasons that recent polls have shown that public commitment to climate change, public belief in climate change, is dropping off a bit in the United States, in the European Union, and in Australia. There are several reasons. One is the economic collapse has been a bit of a distraction. But another reason is what one of my colleagues calls apocalypse fatigue. And that is when we hear this science and how dire many of the warnings are, when we see movies like 2012, when we see movies like The Day After Tomorrow, The 11th Hour, and even The Inconvenient Truth, that try to shock us into action. Those are very good. We need to understand the consequences of not doing the right thing. But those also can be absolutely immobilizing. They can give us that deer in the headlights, powerless feeling that causes people to retreat from acting or even believing in this problem. So we have embarked upon a project called The Future We Want. I will not take time now, following Tony's admonishment.
But it's a really good project.
Yeah, but what we're hoping to do is begin to use modern technology to show people the future we want, a sustainable future, and how dynamic, realistic, but beautiful, and how dynamic and opportunity-filled that future can be.
And just to say that the design element of that, and we talked about it briefly, but with people in the room who heads Index, which is this fantastic Danish-based global design initiative, the design element of thinking about the future is absolutely key to it. So I hope those conversations do take place.
Actually, we're launching a new initiative on designing pathways to common futures by using the power of visualization. So we should talk.
We should talk. And I see this realization that we need those paths popping up all over the place.
Yeah,
we, unlike most other groups, we have a brochure, so I feel we're a little bit ahead of the pack. And again, my competitive juices are flowing. But turning it over to Lawrence, I just want to say this we definitely need to feel a sense of urgency. There's very good reason to feel that sense of urgency. We need to remember that we can't rely only on the politicians. We certainly need good government policies, but it's up to us. It's going to be our future to build. We either will be as architects or as victims, and I know all of you are architects, and I look forward to talking with you.
And what we're going to go on to talk about